you can't always get it right when you're saying, I mean, everybody says, do what you love to do. Well, I didn't know what I wanted to do, what I love to do. So you got to do something in the meantime. And you find it's not right, then you get the heck out of there. But I love the food industry. I had flexibility. I could come and go. If you were a good manager, you could take 2 days off a week, if you wanted to. But if you were good enough, you could do it. My name is Ray Overdorff, and this is my advice. I grew up in central western Pennsylvania on a dairy dirt farm. And there were 7 in our family, 7 siblings. And I was the youngest of the 4. And then there was kind of like a 6-year break, 7-year break, and then there was 3 more. So I had the luxury of being the baby for several years. And then I became the big brother. And of course, the 4 boys lived in the same bedroom. It was kind of like a boys' dorm, And when I was 11 years old, I was kind of felt like I was claustrophobic, Here's my 3 big brothers, and I'm in this room with my 3 big brothers. So I belonged to the Boy Scouts, and they were selling Army surplus. And so they had cots there, and they had a pup tent. So I bought a pup tent, a cot, and 2 Army blankets, and I moved out into the orchard when I was 11 years old, about 500-600 yards from the homestead. And I'd stay there until the snow came, and then next spring I would go back out again. I did that until I graduated high school. It was a wonderful thing because it allowed me to really get in touch with me. Aside from I love my brothers, and we got along fine, but I just felt like I needed space. I need to get some space. And when I graduated high school, I really wanted to go to college, but I didn't have the money, and so I had to figure out a way to make money, and I looked at different things. I looked at factory work and whatever, and I ended up choosing not to go with the factory work. The manager of the supermarket in the local community there called my mother and said, I understand you have a son who's graduated high school. Is he looking for work? And if he is, would he be interested in coming for an interview? It was the furthest thing from my mind. Me working in a supermarket, I never thought about it because I grew up on the farm. I had no idea. It was about hard work, getting things done and all that kind of stuff. And so then I went for the interview, and we kind of hit it off. He liked me, I liked him. And he says, can you start, I'd like to hire you. He said, can you start next week? And so I never even filled out that application. The girl in the office filled out the application. I gave her the information, and I spent 25 years working for the corporation. When I left the farm to go to work for the corporation, I had an idea in my head of what it took to be successful. And on the farm, if you worked hard, you were honest, and you did the right things, and you did them in the right way, that spelled success for me. So I went to the corporation. That's what I did. I said, I'm going to be the best employee I can be. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to do the right things. And I'm going to do them the right way to the best of my ability. But what I realized very quickly was that I didn't have the same knowledge in the retail industry. I knew nothing about it that I had on the farm. So I realized very quickly that I had to get up to speed. And so I started looking at people that knew what they were doing a good job, and I would go to them and I'd say, hey, if I need information, if I need to understand something, is it okay if I come to you? Well, what happened was, they started me in the produce department, and I became very good friends with the department manager there, and I would ask him questions, and he taught me everything about running the produce department. Well, then I started making relationships with the other department managers. Well, then the store manager came to me one day and he said, Ray, you have a knack for this business. He said, I don't know what you're going to do. And I said, well, I never told you this, but I said, I want to make money so I can go to college. He said, well, I'd like to offer you another option. He said, if you like this business and you'd like to stay in the business, he said, I'll teach you the business. And I think you have what it takes to to be a manager and beyond, be part of the management team. I thought, that's a pretty good deal. So that's what I did. So he put me on what they called their fast track. And he moved from department to department to department. And what ultimately happened, I ended up getting promoted to assistant manager, store manager, and regional manager. And I was the youngest regional manager in the corporation. So as time went on, I started thinking about, where I wanted to go with this. And I never had a goal. My goal was always just be the best I could be and let things happen however they happened. And so as I reflect back on that, and I thought about some things that really helped me, and I'd like to share some of those ideas as we move forward. And I think number one thing is, if you want to be successful in anything, whether you're an entrepreneur, anything you're trying to do, you gotta develop a good work ethic. And if you don't have a good work ethic, then you're going to be challenged because you're not going to progress as quickly. Be curious. Being curious allows you to ask better questions, get more information, and it builds your confidence, and you become a much better performer as a result of being curious. Whatever you decide to do, put a plan behind it. If you don't have a plan, and don't get stuck on so many of the details. What's important about the plan is that you're crystal clear in what you want to do, and you put a plan together to support that, and you identify the major obstacles. Don't worry so much about the how. The how will kind of take care of itself as you move forward. Once you've completed that plan, then what I like to tell people is make the plan the boss, and then go to work for the plan. And you'll find that it's a lot easier, and you make a lot better decisions, and you make yourself accountable to the plan. Know yourself. You have to know yourself. Some people are good at sitting at the desk. Some people are good at communicating with people. And you need to align yourself with things where your strengths are. In the late 70s, I'd had a very successful career in the retail industry. But in the late 70s, I started thinking about, and I was seeing where the company was going. And I was a little concerned about where the company was really going to. And so I asked myself, what am I really good at? And when I asked that question, I realized that I was good at getting things done, at performance, but I was also good at working with people. I needed to do something different. And once I found out what I was really good at, I thought, I think I'm good enough that I could be a consultant. So in 1982, I left the corporation after 25 years, and I started my consulting business. And I did very well. And for probably 12, 15 years, I worked all over eastern United States in the retail industry, helping companies turn their businesses around. And we had companies where we doubled their business, we doubled their profits. I never worked with a company that they didn't do better. They didn't improve their performance. And they got a return that was much greater than what they paid for the services. So it was very rewarding. And so the question is, why did I want to leave that kind of an easy job or a plush job? I had been doing it for so long. But I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to make a difference in the retail industry, and I felt that it could. So over the next 10, 15 years, I worked with over 8,000 leaders, from CEOs to store managers to department managers. I worked with over 1,200 teams. I've had a wonderful exposure to people, and I learned a tremendous amount from all of those people that I worked with. And when I had this opportunity to give this speech at this group that I had worked with, I realized that you have to have a philosophy about people. And that's when 6 Truths of the Workplace came to me. And I also realized at that same time that the leader's role in the organization is to create the climate and environment that supports the vision of the company, but also supports the people. Because there's genius in every company, but that genius lives deep within each individual. And if you can create the climate and environment that allows that genius to emerge, you're unbeatable. Nobody can compete with you. So one of my things that has really helped me be successful over the years is I always had a mentor. Now I'm running out of mentors because there's nobody out there that's more mature, has got more experience than I have. In many cases, it's hard to find mentors today. So my advice to people is, find a mentor, find a coach, build a philosophy about people. People say, well, so what's the problem? What if I don't have a philosophy about people? If you don't have a philosophy about people written down, you do. And I can guarantee you it's not working for you. It's probably working against you. You have to understand people. And so I'd like to share those 6 truths that I came to and I've used for many, many years. And it helped me to train people, helped me to work with people. And number 1 is, I have found, truth number 1 is that most people want to do a good job. Now, having said that, there's a lot of people that don't do a very good job. Some do a really lousy job. There's some that do kind of average and some that do great. But if you look at the research says that around 23% do a really good job. Some do average, and the rest do poorly. So like about 77% of the work population in the U.S. is doing they're either somewhat disengaged or totally disengaged, and the 23% is carrying the load for the rest of them. Why isn't everybody doing a great job? And so I did the research on that. I searched around to find out what the real answer to that was. And the number 1 reason why people don't do the best that they can do up to their capabilities is they're not clear on the expectations. Or they don't agree with the expectations. Or maybe they've been misaligned. They're in an area where they don't have adequate training. And so then they get disgruntled and they don't care. The second truth is most people given the same information will come pretty close to the same conclusions. So you say, well, why is there so much disagreement? Well, why is it so hard to get agreement? The reason it's hard to get agreement is we shortcut the communication process in many cases. Everybody's got a different background. Everybody's got a different frame of reference. And what I found is when you share information, when you listen and you collaborate with somebody, what you'll find is that you'll be pretty close, you'll come to common ground, and you'll be able to work things out. And the third truth is everybody wants to be somebody. I've asked that question all over the country, who wants to be a nobody? And nobody ever puts their hand up. So why is it that people feel like nobodies? What's going on in an organization that allows people to feel like, I'm just going to trade my time for money because I'm a nobody anyhow, If you're leading other people, find ways to get them more involved and when they get involved, then they'll start participating more. And as they participate more, then they'll become more engaged. And when they're involved and they're participating and they're engaged, there are 5 things, and I did the research on this with over 8,000 people. There were 5 things that change automatically. Number 1, their satisfaction goes up. 2, they take more responsibility because they feel like they're part of the organization. 3, they're more committed, so they're putting their all into it. 4, their frustration goes down because they're engaged, they're involved. And number 5 is performance goes through the roof. And I've done that over and over and over. I've done that survey with people, and it always comes out the same. Change. We all know how difficult change is, and we've all tried to make changes. But yet when you talk to people and you say, are you willing to change? They say, yeah, I'm willing to change, but then they don't. And so that begs the question, why don't people change? And number one, I guess first of all, there's a natural tendency to avoid fear and resist change. But the second thing is they don't know how to change. And usually if somebody's going to change, they need a support system. They need a coach. They need a mentor. They need somebody to bounce it off of. Truth number 5. We've all been in a bad system. It's hard to look good, do good, and feel good in a bad system. And so what do? You find yourself in a bad system. What do? You just leave? No. You find yourself in a bad system. You challenge the system. You make tweaks in the system. And maybe you go get permission to change the system. But you take some risks. Systems guide the organization. People build systems. And of course, number 6 is everybody needs a coach. And everybody can benefit from a good coach. If you look at the NFL as an example, which is the epitome of personal success, 80% of the NFL players will have financial difficulties once they leave their profession, and they've made millions of dollars. About 20%, 18 to 20%, will file bankruptcy within 4 to 5 years after leaving the NFL. So the question is why? All of their life, they've had a coach. Somebody showed them, look, here's what you need to do. Here's how you need to do it. Now put yourself in there. And all of a sudden, they walk away and they're naked. They spent all their money. They're broke. And they're walking the streets. Believe in yourself. And find yourself a mentor or coach. It doesn't have to be a professional. It's better. You can start out by just having somebody that you know, that you respect. And I've never had anybody turn me down. When I say, would you help me? I'm trying to figure this out. And I've never had a person turn me down. Think, believe, feel, choose, do. That creates your life.
If we knew then all that we know now, I think the world would be better somehow. And if way back when someone showed us the